As New Zealanders, we're known for our adventurous spirit. We love to explore the world, experience new cultures, and discover hidden gems. From the beaches of the Pacific to the ancient ruins of Europe, there's no place too far for a Kiwi to venture. But not every destination is safe for us to explore. In fact, there are places where danger lurks around every corner. Places where political turmoil, conflict, and extreme safety risks make travel not just unwise, but life-threatening. Today, we'll uncover the countries that are currently off-limits for Kiwi travelers, and why these once beautiful destinations are no longer safe havens for exploration. From war-torn regions to governments in chaos, let's take a journey through the world's most dangerous places and understand the risks that keep us grounded. Number 10. Niger. Niger is experiencing security challenges, making it off-limits for New Zealanders. Niger, a landlocked country located in West Africa, is a place of stunning natural beauty and deep cultural heritage. Covering an area of over 1.2 million square kilometers, it is the largest country in West Africa and is predominantly made up of desert terrain, including vast stretches of the Sahara Desert. The country is home to ancient trade routes, vibrant nomadic cultures, and unique geographic features like the Air Mountains and the Termit Massif. Historically, Niger was part of several powerful West African empires, including the Mali and Songhai empires, and it has long been a crossroads for trade between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. The country's rich cultural heritage is reflected in its music, dances, and traditional festivals, as well as in the architecture of cities like Agadez, known for its distinctive mud brick buildings and mosques. However, despite its cultural and natural beauty, Niger is currently experiencing severe security challenges that make it a dangerous destination for international travelers, including New Zealanders. The country has been plagued by insurgent groups, including those linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, which operate primarily in the Sahel region. These militant groups have carried out frequent attacks on both military personnel and civilians, targeting local communities, government installations, and foreign nationals. Kidnappings, bombings, and armed assaults are common in many regions, creating a dangerous environment for travelers. The security situation in Niger is further complicated by the country's political instability and economic difficulties. Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world, with limited access to healthcare, education, and basic infrastructure. The government has struggled to maintain control over remote areas, particularly in the north and east, where insurgent groups are most active. The presence of landmines and other unexploded ordnance in certain regions poses an additional threat to travelers. In response to the deteriorating security situation, the New Zealand government has issued a strict travel advisory for Niger, warning its citizens not to travel to the country under any circumstances. The risk of terrorism, kidnapping, and violent crime is simply too high for safe travel. Furthermore, Niger's limited healthcare system means that medical assistance may be difficult to access in the event of an emergency, and the country's infrastructure is not equipped to handle the needs of foreign tourists. For New Zealanders, the risks associated with visiting Niger far outweigh the potential rewards of exploring its beautiful landscapes and rich cultural heritage. Until the security situation improves, Niger remains off-limits for Kiwi travelers. Those who are interested in visiting the Sahel region are encouraged to consider safer alternatives, such as Senegal or Morocco, which offer similar cultural experiences without the same level of risk. 9. Iraq. Travel to Iraq is restricted for New Zealanders because of security concerns. Iraq, often referred to as the cradle of civilization, is home to some of the most important historical and archaeological sites in the world. The ancient Mesopotamian cities of Ur, Babylon, and Nineveh, along with the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, form the foundation of human civilization, where writing, agriculture, and the first cities were born. Iraq's cultural heritage is immense, encompassing thousands of years of history, from the Sumerians and Akkadians to the Persians, Greeks, and Arabs. Baghdad, the capital of Iraq, was once a center of learning and culture during the Islamic Golden Age, where scholars from around the world gathered to study science, philosophy, and literature. The city's libraries and academies were world-renowned, and its influence on global culture and knowledge cannot be overstated. Modern-day Iraq is also home to diverse communities, including Arabs, Kurds, Assyrians, and Turkmen, each with their own distinct languages, traditions, and religious practices. Despite its rich history, Iraq has been a country of conflict and political instability for much of its recent history. The 2003 invasion by the United States and its allies, followed by the fall of Saddam Hussein's regime, led to years of war, insurgency, and sectarian violence. The rise of the Islamic State, ISIS, in 2014 further destabilized the country, as the group seized large parts of northern and western Iraq, committing atrocities against civilians and destroying cultural heritage sites in the process. Although Iraq has made significant progress in its fight against ISIS, the country remains unstable, with terrorist attacks, kidnappings, and violent crimes occurring frequently. Militias, many of which are backed by foreign powers, still exert significant influence in various parts of the country, making certain regions virtually ungovernable. Areas like Mosul, which were liberated from ISIS control, are still recovering from the devastation of the conflict. Rebuilding efforts are ongoing, but the scale of destruction is so vast that it will take years for these regions to fully recover. For New Zealanders, the security risks in Iraq are simply too high to justify travel. The New Zealand government has issued a strong travel advisory against all non-essential travel to Iraq, citing the ongoing threat of terrorism, violent crime, and civil unrest. Kidnappings of foreign nationals are a particular concern, with many incidents involving ransom demands or political leverage. The lack of a reliable healthcare system and the potential for military conflict also make Iraq a dangerous destination for tourists. While some regions of Iraq, particularly in the Kurdistan region in the north, have seen relative stability and economic growth, even these areas are not immune to the broader security challenges facing the country. For those interested in exploring Iraq's historical and cultural heritage, it may be worth considering other countries in the region, such as Jordan or Turkey, which offer similar archaeological sites and cultural experiences without the same level of risk. 8. Lebanon. Due to political instability and safety concerns, Lebanon is currently restricted for Kiwi travelers. Lebanon is a country that has long been considered a jewel of the Mediterranean, with its stunning coastline, vibrant cities, and rich cultural history. From the ancient Phoenician city of Byblos, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, to the Roman temples of Baalbek and the Crusader castles that dot its landscape, Lebanon is a country with a deep and fascinating history. Its capital, Beirut, has been known as the Paris of the Middle East for its cosmopolitan atmosphere, thriving art scene, and lively nightlife. Lebanon's diverse population includes Christians, Sunni and Shia Muslims, Druze, and Armenians, each contributing to the country's unique cultural fabric. The country's cuisine, music, and festivals reflect this diversity, making Lebanon a top destination for travelers seeking a blend of history, culture, and natural beauty. The Lebanese mountains, with their cedar forests and ski resorts, offer a scenic contrast to the Mediterranean beaches, creating a diverse landscape that appeals to all types of travelers. However, despite its beauty and cultural richness, Lebanon has faced significant political and economic challenges in recent years. The country's political system is based on a delicate balance of power sharing between its various religious groups, but this system has often led to gridlock, corruption, and inefficiency. Political tensions between different factions, including the powerful Hezbollah organization, have frequently spilled over into violence, creating instability and uncertainty. The situation in Lebanon took a dramatic turn for the worse in 2020, when a massive explosion at the port of Beirut devastated large parts of the city, killing hundreds and displacing thousands. The explosion, caused by the improper storage of ammonium nitrate, was widely seen as a symbol of the government's corruption and incompetence, sparking widespread protests and calls for reform. Since then, Lebanon has been in the grip of a severe economic crisis, with the local currency losing much of its value, inflation soaring, and basic necessities like fuel, electricity, and medicine becoming scarce. The security situation in Lebanon has also deteriorated, with frequent clashes between different political and sectarian groups. The country's proximity to the conflict in Syria has further complicated matters, with the presence of Syrian refugees and the involvement of Hezbollah in the Syrian civil war creating additional tensions. The risk of terrorist attacks, armed clashes, and civil unrest remains high, particularly in areas near the Syrian border and southern Lebanon. For New Zealanders, the risks of traveling to Lebanon in 2024 are significant. The New Zealand government has issued a travel advisory warning against non-essential travel to the country, citing political instability, economic collapse, and the potential for violent conflict. While some areas of Beirut may still be relatively safe, the overall unpredictability of the situation makes Lebanon a risky destination for tourists. Until the country stabilizes, New Zealanders are advised to explore other destinations in the region, such as Cyprus or Greece, which offer similar Mediterranean experiences without the same level of risk. 7. Venezuela. Venezuela's political and economic turmoil have led to travel restrictions for Kiwis. Venezuela, a country that was once one of the wealthiest in Latin America due to its vast oil reserves, is known for its incredible natural beauty. From the world's largest waterfall, Angel Falls, to the stunning beaches of Isla Margarita and the lush Amazon rainforest, Venezuela offers a variety of landscapes that attract nature lovers and adventure seekers alike. The country also boasts vibrant cities like the capital Caracas, which was once a hub of culture, nightlife, and commerce. Historically, Venezuela has been rich in resources, particularly oil, which made it one of the most prosperous nations in the region. However, in recent years, the country has been plunged into a deep political, economic, and social crisis. The roots of the crisis can be traced back to the leadership of Hugo Chavez, who led the country from 1999 until his death in 2013. Chavez implemented a series of socialist policies, including the nationalization of industries, which, while initially popular, led to mismanagement and corruption. After Chavez's death, his successor, Nicolas Maduro, struggled to maintain control, and the country's situation deteriorated rapidly. The Venezuelan economy, which is heavily dependent on oil exports, collapsed as global oil prices fell and mismanagement of the state-run oil company, PDVSA, led to a sharp decline in production. Hyperinflation has rendered the national currency, the bolivar, nearly worthless, and shortages of basic goods such as food, medicine, and fuel are widespread. The healthcare system has also collapsed, with hospitals lacking even the most basic supplies. This economic crisis has driven millions of Venezuelans to flee the country, creating a refugee crisis in neighboring countries like Colombia and Brazil. In addition to the economic collapse, Venezuela is grappling with severe political turmoil. The government under Maduro has been accused of human rights abuses, including the suppression of political opposition, arbitrary arrests, and violent crackdowns on protests. The country has seen widespread protests against the government, many of which have turned violent, leading to deaths, injuries, and mass arrests. The political situation is further complicated by the existence of two competing governments: Maduro's regime, which is supported by the military, and an opposition government led by Juan Guaidó, who has been recognized as the legitimate president by many countries, including the United States. For New Zealanders, Venezuela is currently a high-risk destination. The New Zealand government has issued strict travel advisories against visiting the country due to the severe security risks posed by the political and economic situation. Crime rates, particularly in urban areas, are extremely high, with frequent reports of violent robberies, kidnappings, and carjackings. Caracas, once a thriving metropolis, now has one of the highest murder rates in the world. The lack of basic services, including healthcare and clean water, makes travel to Venezuela not only dangerous but also logistically difficult. Foreign nationals, including tourists, are often targeted by criminal groups, and the risk of being caught in violent protests or government crackdowns is significant. Furthermore, the lack of diplomatic relations between Venezuela and New Zealand means that consular assistance would be extremely limited in the event of an emergency. For Kiwis who are interested in exploring the natural beauty and vibrant culture of South America, safer alternatives like Colombia, Peru, or Brazil offer similar experiences without the same level of risk. Venezuela, unfortunately, remains off-limits for New Zealanders in 2024 until the country stabilizes politically and economically. 6. Eritrea. Eritrea has stringent visa requirements and limited diplomatic relations with New Zealand. Eritrea, located in the Horn of Africa, is a country that is often described as a hidden gem due to its relatively undiscovered natural beauty and unique cultural heritage. From the bustling capital city of Asmara, known for its well-preserved Italian colonial architecture, to the pristine beaches along the Red Sea coast, Eritrea offers a wealth of history and natural scenery. Asmara itself has been recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its Art Deco buildings, a legacy of the Italian occupation in the early 20th century. The country is also home to ancient archaeological sites, such as the ruins of Adulis, which date back to the Kingdom of Aksum. In terms of geography, Eritrea boasts a diverse landscape that ranges from the highlands of the Eritrean Plateau to the hot, arid deserts of the Danakil Depression, one of the hottest places on Earth. Its Red Sea coastline is dotted with coral reefs and unspoiled islands that are popular with diverse and marine life enthusiasts. Despite its small size, Eritrea has a rich cultural history that is shaped by its location at the crossroads of Africa and the Middle East, with influences from various civilizations, including the Egyptians, Ottomans, and Italians. However, despite its natural and cultural attractions, Eritrea is one of the most isolated and secretive countries in the world, often referred to as the North Korea of Africa. The country has been ruled by President Isaias Afwerki since it gained independence from Ethiopia in 1993, and his government has been characterized by authoritarianism, severe restrictions on freedom of speech, and a lack of political pluralism. Eritrea has no functioning national elections, and the government controls all aspects of daily life, including the economy and media. One of the biggest challenges facing travelers to Eritrea is its stringent visa requirements. The government places tight controls on the issuance of visas, and obtaining one can be a lengthy and difficult process. Even if a visa is granted, movement within the country is highly restricted. Foreigners are required to obtain special permits to travel outside of Asmara, and these permits are often denied without explanation. The lack of freedom of movement, combined with the risk of arbitrary detention, makes Eritrea a difficult and unpredictable destination for tourists. Eritrea's relations with other countries, including New Zealand, are minimal. The country has limited diplomatic representation abroad, and there are few embassies or consulates that can assist travelers in the event of an emergency. The New Zealand government advises against all non-essential travel to Eritrea, citing concerns about the country's human rights record, political instability, and the lack of reliable consular support. One of the most significant issues in Eritrea is its policy of indefinite military conscription, which affects nearly every young person in the country. Conscripts are often forced to serve for years in the military or in government-run work programs with little or no pay. This has led to widespread discontent and has driven many young Eritreans to flee the country, often risking their lives by crossing the desert or the Mediterranean Sea in search of asylum in Europe. For New Zealanders, the combination of restrictive visa policies, political repression, and the lack of basic freedoms makes Eritrea an unsuitable destination for travel in 2024. While the country's historical and natural sites may be appealing, the risks associated with visiting, including the possibility of being detained or restricted in movement, are too high. Instead, travelers who are interested in exploring the Horn of Africa may want to consider visiting nearby Ethiopia or Djibouti, both of which offer unique cultural experiences in a somewhat safer and more accessible environment. 5. Belarus. Due to political tensions, Belarus is currently off-limits for New Zealand travelers. Belarus, located in Eastern Europe, is a country with a rich history and a unique cultural identity. Known for its well-preserved medieval castles, beautiful Orthodox churches, and vast forests, Belarus offers a variety of attractions for history buffs and nature lovers alike. The country is home to several UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including the Mir Castle Complex and the Struve Geodetic Arc, which reflects the country's historical importance as a center of scientific and cultural development in Europe. Minsk, the capital of Belarus, is a city that has undergone significant development since the fall of the Soviet Union. The city's wide boulevards, impressive Soviet-era architecture, and modern cultural institutions make it an interesting destination for those who want to experience the blend of Soviet and post-Soviet influences in Eastern Europe. Belarus is also known for its festivals, traditional crafts, and folklore, which reflect the country's deep Slavic roots. However, despite its cultural and natural attractions, Belarus has become increasingly isolated on the international stage due to its political situation. The country has been ruled by President Alexander Lukashenko since 1994, making him one of the longest-serving leaders in Europe. Under Lukashenko's rule, Belarus has been described as Europe's last dictatorship. The government maintains tight control over the media, suppresses political opposition, and frequently uses security forces to crack down on protests. The political situation in Belarus came to a head in 2020, when Lukashenko claimed victory in a highly controversial presidential election that many international observers and opposition groups considered to be rigged. The election sparked massive protests across the country, as hundreds of thousands of Belarusians took to the streets to demand Lukashenko's resignation. The government responded with a brutal crackdown, arresting thousands of protesters, journalists, and opposition leaders. Reports of torture and other human rights abuses in detention centers have drawn widespread condemnation from the international community. In response to the political repression and human rights violations in Belarus, many countries, including New Zealand, have imposed sanctions on the Lukashenko regime. The European Union and the United States have also restricted travel to Belarus for both their citizens and Belarusian officials. The political tensions between Belarus and Western countries have led to a significant deterioration in Belarus's international relations, with many embassies reducing their presence or closing altogether. For New Zealanders, Belarus is currently considered a high-risk destination due to the political instability and the potential for violent unrest. The New Zealand government has issued a travel advisory warning against all non-essential travel to Belarus, citing concerns about the government's repressive actions, the risk of arbitrary detention, and the lack of consular support. The situation is further complicated by Belarus's close ties to Russia, which has provided political and military support to the Lukashenko regime. This relationship has raised concerns that Belarus could become involved in regional conflicts, particularly in light of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Belarus's participation in joint military exercises with Russia and its strategic location on the border with Ukraine have heightened fears that the country could become a flashpoint for future conflicts. For Myanmar, Myanmar's political situation has led to travel restrictions for New Zealanders. Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, is a Southeast Asian country with a rich cultural history and breathtaking natural beauty. The country is home to some of the most iconic religious and historical sites in the world, such as the ancient city of Bagan with its thousands of Buddhist temples, the Golden Shwedagon Pagoda in Yangon, and the serene Inal Lake, where traditional leg-rowing fishermen ply their trade. Myanmar's lush landscapes, from dense tropical forests to the majestic mountains of the Shan Highlands, make it a destination for nature lovers and adventure seekers. Culturally, Myanmar is incredibly diverse, with over 135 distinct ethnic groups, each with its own languages, customs, and traditions. The majority of the population practices Theravada Buddhism, and the country is dotted with pagodas, monasteries, and religious festivals that play a central role in the daily life of many Burmese people. Myanmar's unique blend of culture, history, and natural beauty has made it a popular destination for travelers seeking to explore less visited parts of Southeast Asia. However, Myanmar has been embroiled in political turmoil for decades, and the current situation has made it an extremely dangerous destination for international travelers, including New Zealanders. In February 2021, the Myanmar military, known as the Tatmadaw, staged a coup d'état, overthrowing the democratically elected government led by Aung San Suu Kyi and her National League for Democracy, NLD party. The coup sparked widespread protests across the country, with millions of people taking to the streets to demand the restoration of democracy. The military responded to the protests with brutal force, using live ammunition, tear gas, and mass arrests to suppress dissent. Thousands of civilians have been killed or injured in the ensuing violence, and many opposition leaders have been detained or forced into hiding. The situation has escalated into what many observers describe as a civil war, with armed resistance groups forming in various parts of the country to fight against the military junta. The conflict in Myanmar has also exacerbated long-standing ethnic tensions, particularly in areas like Rakhine, Kachin, and Shan states, where ethnic minorities have been involved in armed struggles against the central government for decades. The Rohingya crisis, which saw the military conduct a brutal campaign of ethnic cleansing against the Muslim Rohingya population in 2017, remains unresolved, with hundreds of thousands of Rohingya refugees still living in camps in neighboring Bangladesh. For New Zealanders, traveling to Myanmar in 2024 is highly discouraged due to the severe security risks posed by the ongoing conflict. The New Zealand government has issued a strict travel advisory against all non-essential travel to the country, warning of the dangers of violent unrest, armed conflict, and the risk of arbitrary detention. Foreign nationals, including tourists, are at risk of being caught in the crossfire between government forces and opposition groups, and the situation is unpredictable, with frequent outbreaks of violence in both urban and rural areas. In addition to the security risks, the infrastructure in Myanmar has deteriorated significantly since the coup. Many parts of the country are experiencing shortages of basic goods, including food, fuel, and medicine, and access to healthcare is severely limited. The economic situation is dire, with widespread poverty and unemployment, and the country's banking system is on the verge of collapse. The military government has also imposed restrictions on internet access and communication, making it difficult for travelers to stay informed about the situation on the ground. For New Zealanders who are interested in exploring the cultural and natural wonders of Southeast Asia, there are safer alternatives to Myanmar, such as Thailand, Cambodia, or Vietnam, which offer similar experiences without the same level of risk. Until Myanmar's political situation stabilizes and peace is restored, it remains off-limits for Kiwi travelers in 2024. 3. Mali. Security issues in Mali have resulted in travel bans for New Zealand citizens. Mali, a landlocked country in West Africa, is known for its rich history, particularly as the heart of the ancient Mali Empire, which was once one of the wealthiest and most powerful states in Africa. The Mali Empire, which flourished between the 13th and 16th centuries, was famous for its wealth in gold, its vibrant trade networks across the Sahara, and its iconic cities, such as Timbuktu, which became a center of Islamic learning and culture. Today, Mali's historic and cultural heritage, including the Great Mosque of Jen, the largest mud brick building in the world, and the legendary manuscripts of Timbuktu, continues to attract the interest of historians and travelers alike. Mali's geography is diverse, ranging from the arid Sahara Desert in the north to the fertile Niger River Valley in the south. The country is home to a number of unique ethnic groups, including the Tuareg nomads of the desert and the Dogon people, known for their cliffside villages and intricate art. Mali's music, particularly the blues-like sounds of the Tuareg guitarists and the traditional kora players, has gained international recognition, with artists like Ali Farka Touré and Salif Keita bringing Malian music to a global audience. Despite its cultural richness, Mali has been plagued by conflict and political instability in recent years, making it a dangerous destination for travelers. The current security crisis began in 2012 when Tuareg separatists in the north of the country launched a rebellion, seeking independence for the region they called Azawad. The situation quickly escalated as Islamist militant groups, some with links to Al-Qaeda, took advantage of the chaos and seized control of large parts of northern Mali, including the historic city of Timbuktu. While French and Malian forces managed to regain control of the north in 2013, the conflict has continued to simmer, with militant groups periodically launching attacks on government forces, UN peacekeepers, and civilians. The situation worsened in 2020 when a military coup overthrew Mali's government, leading to further political instability. The new military-led government has struggled to maintain control, particularly in rural areas, where jihadist groups continue to operate with impunity. The security situation in Mali is highly volatile, with frequent reports of terrorist attacks, kidnappings, and armed clashes between government forces and rebel groups. Foreign nationals, especially those from Western countries, are often targeted by militant groups for kidnappings, and several have been held for ransom or killed in recent years. The risk of terrorism is particularly high in the northern and central regions of the country, but even the capital, Bamako, has seen deadly attacks on hotels, restaurants, and other locations frequented by foreigners. For New Zealanders, traveling to Mali in 2024 is highly inadvisable due to the severe security risks. The New Zealand government has issued a strong travel advisory against all non-essential travel to Mali, citing the threat of terrorism, kidnapping, and armed conflict. The country's infrastructure has been severely damaged by the ongoing conflict, and access to healthcare, transportation, and communication is limited, particularly in the north.